what are some of the things that the Political Action Committee here at the Spokane NAACP is really doing to move forward racial and social justice? What are some of the conversations that you have in Political Action Committee meetings with the chair and with the members?
Well, there's quite a few things. One of the things we are staying on top of is what's going on with the Voting Rights Act in the state of Washington, because as with some of the other states back east that have been trying to take away rights of citizens to vote, we have some people in Washington that are trying to do the same in certain areas, so we're trying to stay on top of that. We're also staying on top of what's going on with the social justice with policing right now. Rachel's been following down in Pasco what happened to the young man down there who was killed by the police, and with nationally what's going on that pertains to cameras with policing. We're trying to stay on top of that.
And so you're also going to be holding a candidate forum for city council candidates.
Yes.
It's election year, so
big thing.
Right.
That's one
talking
of the
about
big
political
things.
Representation, but sometimes, if we don't necessarily have a person of color or somebody who is representing the social justice movement maybe directly, but we have candidates, we wonder where they are on some of these issues. And so the Political Action Committee is going to be hosting an NAACP forum.
And
what kind of questions do you think are going to come out for the candidates, or what thoughts do you have about the forum?
We want to see how their values align with our values, with on social justice, on education, on health. So that's a big issue that we continue to follow.
Absolutely.
And our candidates forum is going to be June 23rd at 7:30 here. So if you know anybody to come or you can attend, we really appreciate it. And
Yeah.
we're looking forward to that.
Good. So we have another representative of the Spokane Moves to Amend the Constitution with us today. And so if you could just introduce yourself and maybe tell us on a local level, what are some of the things on your wish list for political change or social justice?
My name is Stacy Cossey, and I'm a volunteer with Spokane Moves to Amend the Constitution, and also a Spokane organizer for WAMEND, and also a volunteer for Move to Amend. And those three organizations are all working for my wish list. And my wish list really rotates around the influence of money in our electoral system. And Spokane Moves to Amend the Constitution and WAMEND are active in an initiative right now to get big money out of our elections. And it's on two levels, really, because what happened is that 5 years ago, our Supreme Court gave our constitutional rights to corporations. And, since we have the right of freedom of speech, so now to corporations, but they can't speak and they can't vote. So what they've been allowed to do is set up super PACs, fund them with unlimited amounts of undisclosed money as their freedom of speech. And so that's how they have been using our First Amendment rights against us by buying our elections. When you add the 4th, the 5th, and the 14th Amendments, they actually literally have the right to continue to pollute our environment. And so when you put those together and you realize, okay, so for every dollar that the largest 200 corporations put into our political system, they get $760 back in terms of a return. Then all of a sudden you realize, oh, well, that's why we don't have social justice, economic justice. That's why so many things in the world aren't working for us. It's not that they don't hear us. It's not that they don't understand us. It's just too profitable.
Right.
So,
And so many historic oppressions really connect.
Oh.
There's this intersectionality of course, race, class, gender, sexual
Absolutely.
orientation, religion, national origin. So many groups that have been marginalized, cut out of the dialogue, underfunded, under-promoted, underheard. So for you, when you're talking about this connection between big business and justice, what is a kind of example or illustration that you would give locally?
Well, one of my examples is our election we had 2 years ago on genetically modified organisms here in Washington State. We had a choice about whether we wanted to label what's in our food, genetically modified organisms, or not. And Washington State voters as a whole put up $9 million and wanting labeling. Out-of-state multinational corporations, through their super PACs, put up $33 million. Wow. They virtually bought the election, and that is real. That has happened here. If you expand it out further, that same issue, the state of Vermont voted that they wanted labeling in their whole state. The Monsanto is actually suing the state of Vermont, and they are using their First Amendment rights, not of free speech, but they also have the right not to speak under the First Amendment. And so that's a real practical problem.
Right.
You could also, the Fourth Amendment is also being misused. Specifically, there was specifically a corporation, and this is in Massachusetts, not locally, but
Right.
they were a manufacturing company that was putting polluted water into the river. They had a wastewater treatment plant, stopped working. So the EPA got an anonymous tip from an employee, said, hey, check this out. We've got wastewater going into the river. And the EPA got a search warrant, went on site, collected the wastewater, took the corporation to court under the Clean Water Act, and the judge threw it out in trial because the corporation was claiming that they had the right not to have an unreasonable search and seizure.
Right.
And because the EPA didn't call them in advance to let them know that they were showing up to collect the water that would be used against them in a court of law, they threw it out. So when you think about the goals of people
Right.
versus the goals of corporations, they could never coexist. Because we want clean air, fresh water, economic justice, social justice, and corporations want profit.
And it's sometimes at any cost.
Sometimes at any cost.
Usually at some kind of a human rights cost.
Exactly.
Which really connects that social justice piece.
And what I find fascinating about this is that when you look back about the civil rights movements we've had, they have usually been about a class of people that did not get rights that they were entitled to. And it was very clear what we were fighting for.
Right.
This is about corporations that have our rights. They're using them against us, and it's not really clear how that's happening. So connecting the dots is really important.
Right.
With this.
And that kind of leads us to the importance of voter education.
Absolutely.
Which is another piece that the Political Action Committee is looking at for this upcoming election. Well, thank you both for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much.